All right, enough of that other football that apparently has captivated the world. We're talking American football.
The real football.
With Coach Riz. And I can tell you, I could tell by him being out of camp the way he is, he would never give up valuable football field time to the soccer players in the fall. What's up, Coach Riz? How are you?
Hey, guys, what's going on? Happy Friday to you.
That never was a problem, right? You always were very amicable. Okay, you guys can get the field too. No problem.
The Browns shared the practice fields in Berea with Brazil and Egypt.
Is that right?
They had them painted out. They had the soccer goals out there and everything. Oh, yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Part of the peace accord.
Well, I think it's important. You gotta make peace with everybody. That just makes your life a lot easier because there will be moments when you need the field. So that was always kind of my thought process behind it.
Just remember, in soccer, it's under the bar, not over the bar.
All right, Coach Riz, appreciate you coming on because you have been monitoring. You've been giving me basically every day full scouting reports, and I wanted to have you on. I thought this was a perfect time because we finished OTAs, we finished mini camps, and now it's all, 5-6 weeks until we start getting serious and have training camp. And it was the coach himself who had told us he was hoping to have the quarterback stuff ironed out by now, and clearly that isn't happening. What do you think that means?
Well, I actually think it's a good thing. And, the narrative that they've played great or the narrative that they've played terrible, I just don't agree with. I think there's been some real improvement with things that are kind of not what you see on, even the clips I send out with footwork and processing and getting to the second, third progressions and getting the poise and calling these plays. And you can see they have a lot of there's a lot on their plate with changing protections and getting into good plays. And that's kind of the idea of not being in a system offense. So for me, I like it. And as I said yesterday with Daryl, I don't think it's a matter of these guys. A lot of times when you play a quarterback, when people say you have two, you have none, I don't really believe in that unless those two are really playing poorly. And I don't think these two are. I think there's been some inaccuracy, what everybody sees, but what they've done at a high level, and I truly believe that. We got a guy coming off multiple injuries, and you got a guy coming off 7 starts who was a 5th-round pick. I think they've done an excellent job. And obviously there's been some accuracy issues. And that comes down to reps, right? If you run a curl, Boston's going to run it different than Casey Concepcion. And you would hope that gets ironed out with more reps. Obviously, none of it means anything until you get the pads on. It doesn't mean anything until you live bullets. But I've been very impressed with these guys. And, I look at it differently, and I respect what everybody else thinks because that's why quarterback position is so hard to evaluate. We all get them wrong. But from what I saw last year in camp and et cetera over the last 3-4 years, I'm very happy with what I saw on those guys through the entire summer, especially the last 3 days.
Todd Monken has been he's been pretty open and honest about his thoughts and his evaluation. So when he speaks in terms of, both of these guys have, just like you said, Coach, have been good enough to deserve the opportunity to compete in training camp. Is that coach speak? Do you think he really believes that? And do you think, though, he has a plan in his mind who he thinks is going to win this competition and start week 1 in Jacksonville?
I really don't. I don't think he does. And as an old school guy, I think he would like to have this worked out. And I think when he said he'd like to have this done by the end of this mandatory minicamp, I think he meant that because then you're getting into the 80-20 where, everybody works a little bit differently. But usually the starter's getting about 80%, the backup's getting about 20%. And, the more reps you get, the better you are at it. But the idea of one of these guys being in front of the other, we don't know exactly what's going on behind, closed doors, when they're watching film, when they're installing. The thing that I've been most impressed with more than the throws, because the throws don't mean anything to me per se until they get the pads on, because then you got a live pass rush, et cetera. But their ability to get these their offense into different plays. You see them canning plays. You see them killing plays, which means they're kind of getting into new plays. And Todd Monken talked about yesterday, allowing the quarterbacks to get into a great play, but then you got to take ownership of it. And I'm seeing both of these guys do that. Now, once again, that's easy to do in the film room. That's easy to do through walkthroughs. That's even easy to do when you're out there 11 on 11 where everyone else is live and you're not. Obviously, it's a product-based league, and it's a product-based sport. You got to win games. But the progression they've taken, for me, Monken builds to the 11 on 11s. Monken's building to game 1. I think this is an open competition. I think it's very close. And I think both guys have done some really good things. But I do think it comes down to when they get to joint practice versus the Bills, when they get to these preseason games. I think these things mean something this year because it is a close competition, and it is a real competition. I truly believe that.
Coach Riz joining us right now on the We Make It Right Call Kyle Wright hotline. So if you had never seen Deshaun Watson have the success he had previously back in the Texans days, and you didn't see the 7 games last year that Shedeur Sanders had, you just saw what you've seen so far. I know it sounds ridiculous, but who would be the starting quarterback going into week 1?
Well, it's funny because that's how Todd Monken's looking at it. And all the things that happened in the past don't mean anything. And if you're asking me who should start right now, I would say Deshaun Watson. And it's about who gives me the best chance to win right now. So if you're asking me right now, it's Deshaun Watson. But I will say this. Everybody's talked about we know what Deshaun Watson's going to do in practice. He can't do it in games. And I've heard that narrative a bunch. And we've heard that, Shedeur is a gamer but can't do it in practice. Well, I've seen Shedeur all summer, and I think he's a much better practice player than he was before, and he's closed that gap. And I think there was a gap. If he's healthy, Deshaun Watson is elite. And once again, we're not talking about what he's done in the past. We're talking about what we've seen. He's got elite arm talent. He can move. He doesn't look like he's been injured, et cetera. But Shedeur has closed that gap. So if Deshaun gets in a game and he's unable to perform, but is out practicing Shedeur in practice, Shedeur has closed that gap where he's going to get a look. And obviously if you need a spark, I'm never a believer of putting a guy in to get a look at him, to develop him, to see what we got. I don't believe in that. You earn your right to play. And even though I think Watson is ahead in my book, I think Shedeur has closed that gap where he's also earned the right to get a look if Watson wasn't to play at a high level. These guys are doing a lot of really good things. The thing that they got to finish is they got to protect the ball. They've made some poor mistakes during camp, and they got to continue to work on their accuracy, which for me has a lot to do with, like I said, just reps with these new guys. But if you're asking me right now, Anthony, I'm taking Watson, and I think Shedeur's right there with him.
Well, the one thing that we can't blame in this quarterback competition is the supporting cast. It's clearly upgraded. You and I talked about yesterday, Coach, the young receivers. I think they're the big winners of this offseason, as well as the minicamp, Casey Concepcion, Boston, and Isaiah Bond. All 3 of those guys, every day it seems like during practice, they all make plays. And they all make plays consistently. What's your view of these young receivers and their ability to help elevate, whether it's Deshaun or Shedeur?
Well, I'll tell you what. When coming into camp, I'm a big space guy. So I like receivers like Casey Concepcion and Isaiah Bond, those guys who can generate offense when not everybody else does it right. Because when you throw vertically to a Boston, you got to have good pass protection. You got to have a great throw. Those speed guys, those pace guys, those in space pace guys, they don't need a lot else to make plays for you. But I have been incredibly impressed with Denzel Boston. His catch radius, not only on the vertical balls where everybody talks about going downfield and you see those plays where he goes up and gets it. I'm talking on slants and curls and digs. That big body coming across the middle, he presents. That's when the term quarterback friendly. That would be an idea of it. He presents such a great target and he has such a large catch radius. He catches everything. He's kind of an old soul in football. He just comes to work every day. You don't hear him out there. He just gets his job done. Now, for me, what it does, I think that, everybody talks about they don't have a number 1 receiver. I think Boston's has a chance to elevate to that. But they have 3 or 4 guys now, including Isaiah Bond, that I think now give their true number 1 on offense, which is Harold Fannin, is going to force these defenses to be balanced. And you're going to be able to see if they go nickel because they need to cover, now you can run the ball a little bit better. If they go regular personnel with 3 linebackers, who's covering Fannin? You have to be balanced in the secondary because maybe you don't have a true number 1 yet, but these guys have been all really talented in what they've done so far through the summer. And you haven't fixed the offensive line, but you've addressed it. And their movement skills, there's been an influx of talent with that offensive line. So I think things trend upward, and I think it gives these quarterbacks a chance to be successful. And it gives Jerry Jeudy a chance to be successful. And it gives these guys who have, they haven't had much on offense. there is an influx. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to win. It doesn't mean they're going to be successful right away, but you can see the influx of talent, and I think it gives these quarterbacks an opportunity to make plays, and then you'll see who the best guy is, and I think that's important because winning still has to be the priority, not development. Development happens now. When you get to the season, you got to win. It's a product-based league, and you got to win games.
All right, Coach Riz, you have seen the attempt at the install so far. What can you tell us about what the Todd Monken identity of this offense is going to be? Because remember, we've seen very different Todd Monken offenses over the years. That was part of the sell job, is what a chameleon he's been able to be over time. What's it going to look like here, and how different will it look from what we saw previously with Kevin Stefanski?
Oh, it's going to be a lot different. So the idea of, I always like to talk about players over plays and a system-based offense that Kevin ran. And I don't think it's wrong. And I said that to everybody. I don't think Kevin's a bad coach. He's a system-based coach. And when you're a system-based coach, all your pieces have to be really, really good. You have to be really good up front. You have to have a great run game, that wide zone, et cetera, et cetera. That's a system-based. So you have to fit into Kevin's, a system-based coach's offense. Not with Todd Monken. So you just said it right, Anthony. When you get all these different things from Stenson Bennett at Georgia to, Lamar Jackson, he's going to take what you do best and fit it into what he does. And it's not the opposite way, right? So he's going to make sure he maximizes your skill set. He's going to make sure he's a touch guy. So it's not about running particular routes. It's, how do I get this guy open? How do I get this guy touches? How do I maximize Casey Concepcion, what he does best? Everybody talks about him catching the ball. He's had a great 3 weeks, in my opinion, catching the ball. But Casey Concepcion is here to run after the catch. So how do I maximize that? Denzel Boston is here to possibly be a number one. How do I maximize that? Use his length. You've seen that. So you're going to see guys get touches in space where they can be successful. He's going to find matchups. So if you go back to what the defense has been over the last couple of years, where they're trying to find matchups for, defensive ends and linebackers, you're going to get the same thing with this offense. How do I maximize what my guys do best? Not really a scheme. That's what you get when you're old, right? Like us, right? You get the idea of, you've run a million different things. You know how to run these things. But how do they make your offense and how do they make your players maximize their skill set? And that's what you get in a player's offense. So you're going to see week to week, whoever they play, you're going to see different run schemes. You're going to see different pass schemes. But it all comes back to keeping it simple and just maximizing your guys and getting the ball where they can be really good with it when they get it.
Myles Garrett would be accused of wrecking practice on a regular basis when he was here. How problematic has Jared Verse been on the practice field as he's adjusting, going from a 3-4 scheme in L.A., coming to Cleveland where he's in a 4-3?
Well, I think Jared Verse, this is a perfect, not only is it a 4-3, Darryl, but this is an attacking 4-3. So he doesn't have to play on the line of scrimmage very much. When you think about two-gapping or playing the line of scrimmage or consistently getting your hands on an offensive tackle or a tight end, he doesn't have to do that. So he's going to be in a wide five on that weak side, mostly against the tight end. This defense absolutely fits him much better than a 3-4. In a 3-4, when you're that outside linebacker, you have pass responsibility. There's a lot more stunts. That's kind of the beauty of these style defenses that Schwartz runs and now into Rutenberg. This is based on keeping it simple, stupid, right? The idea of having your guys play fast because they know exactly what they're doing. And you can only do that when you have really good players. Jared Verse is a very, very good player. He's very physical at the point of attack. He likes to play the run. You and I were talking yesterday. Poor Spencer Fano goes from Myles Garrett. Now he goes to this next guy who's it's not Myles Garrett. There is no Myles Garrett, but this is a really good football player. And he, along with the rest of those guys up front and this linebacking crew in the secondary, even though thin, if they can stay healthy, this is a really, really good defense. And being in a 4-3, I think you get more out of Jared Verse than you do in a 3-4. It just allows him to put his hand on the ground and go get the quarterback. Read that tackle, stop the run, and go get the quarterback. And that's kind of the goal, right? Win on first down, reward yourself by getting second and third and long, and then go rush the passer. That's kind of what these pressure fronts are doing. And I think he's a perfect fit for what the Browns want to do defensively.
What a breakdown. That's why we have him on all the time, and that's also why he is becoming, if not already, one of the top football analysts in the area. Coach Riz, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely, guys. Have a good weekend. Thanks for having me.
All right, there he is on the Wise Heart Right. We make it right. Call Kyle Wright hotline. You heard what he said. He thinks both quarterbacks are faring well. He loves the install right now from Todd Monken, and he says he'd start Deshaun Watson based on what he's seen so far.